When people talk about Hallow Creek, they still lower their voices, as if the town itself might hear. It's been 25 years, but every porch light still flickers the same way when the wind moves through the power lines, and every shutter creaks like an echo of that night. My name is Evelyn Leighton. I was 10 years old when my father, Thomas Leighton, was arrested, and the world I thought I knew ended before I could even understand it. The cameras called him the Hallow Creek Phantom. To me, he was just Dad. The documentary you're watching isn't about what he did. It's about what came after. The silence, the stares, the nights when every sound in the dark felt like someone whispering my name through the walls. Some stories never leave you. You just learn to live around them. I used to believe my father could fix anything. When the neighbor's tractor broke down, he fixed that. When my bike chain snapped, he patched it up. He had that quiet sort of confidence, the kind that made people trust him without asking questions. Everyone in Hallow Creek did. He was the volunteer fire chief, the man who read scripture on Sundays and built shelves for the library on weekdays. My mother, June, said people were drawn to him because he made the world feel safe. I remember one afternoon, sunlight slanting through the kitchen blinds, the smell of burnt toast and motor oil still clinging to his jacket, when he told me, "Evie, the trick to life is order. Everything has a place. Keep it in its place, and nothing can hurt you." I didn't know then how wrong he was. Because 2 months later, they found the first body. They called her a drifter. The papers said she must have wandered too far out on the highway. But Hallow Creek didn't have drifters. It had secrets that wore smiles. Back then, the police said the same thing they always said in small towns: it can't be one of ours. But it was. I still remember the day they came for him. The sound of sirens cut through the wind like a blade, that high, terrible wail that makes your stomach twist. By the time I ran to the window, there were flashing lights everywhere. Neighbors stood outside in their slippers, holding mugs they'd forgotten to drink from. Mom was screaming. Not at them, at him. I watched my father's face as the handcuffs clicked shut. He didn't fight. He didn't cry. He just looked up at the clouds like it was another Sunday morning. The next few weeks were a blur of news trucks, reporters, and whispered prayers. I stopped going to school because every time I walked into class, the room went silent. They didn't see a child anymore, just the daughter of a monster. When the trial started, I sat beside Mom in the front row. I didn't understand the details, but I knew what the word bind meant. I knew what torture meant. The prosecutor spoke for hours. My father didn't look at us once. When they read the sentence, 10 counts of murder, life without parole, I didn't cry. I just felt empty, as if someone had scooped out the person I used to be and left a hollow space behind. Mom never sang again after that. Not once. I changed my last name when I turned 18. I left Hallow Creek, enrolled in a community college 3 states away, and told everyone my parents were dead. For a while, it worked. I became Evelyn Rowe, art teacher, reliable, ordinary. I kept my world small. Morning coffee, lesson plans, quiet weekends. But the past has a strange way of finding you. When the documentary producer first emailed me, I thought it was a prank. She said she wanted to make a film, not about him, but about me. About what happens when your life becomes collateral damage in someone else's story. I ignored her for weeks. Then, one night, I dreamed I was back in the old house. The wallpaper was peeling, and my father was sitting in the living room chair, smiling. When I woke up, I said yes. Because if I didn't tell the story, someone else would, and they'd get it wrong. So I went back. The first thing I noticed when I stepped back into our old house was the smell. Cedar. Dust. Faint traces of mothballs and time. The furniture was gone, but the air still held our ghosts. The film crew stayed quiet. Even the director, who never stopped talking, lowered her voice like the house might break if she spoke too loud. We filmed in the living room first. The floorboards still creaked in the same spots. I could almost hear Dad's footsteps in the hallway. Then they handed me the letters, the ones he'd written from prison. I hadn't seen them before. My mother kept them locked away. The first line was neat, almost elegant. "My dear Evie, I hope you understand that I was 2 men." I stopped reading. I told them to turn off the camera. But they didn't. I could feel the tears coming before I even knew I was crying. It wasn't grief. It was rage, old and raw, like something burning through me after years of pretending not to feel. I said, quietly, "You weren't two men. You were one man who made choices." The crew didn't move. That's when I realized, for the first time, I was speaking not as his daughter, but as the person he tried to erase. The documentary, My Father's Silence, premiered online 6 months later. I watched it alone, in my apartment, lights off. Hearing my voice loud over footage of Hallow Creek was strange, like listening to someone else tell my story. The music swelled, the credits rolled, and then came the comments. Thousands of them. Some said I was brave. Others said I was exploiting tragedy. I told myself I wouldn't read them, but I did. You always do. And then one message appeared, from a name I didn't recognize. My mother was one of his victims. "I thought I'd hate you. But I see you're hurting too. Maybe we both deserve peace." That line broke something open inside me. Because for the first time, I wasn't alone in the shadow of his crimes. We met months later, not for the cameras, just for us. She told me she'd spent her whole life trying to forgive a ghost. I told her I'd spent mine trying to kill one. When we hugged, it felt like we were both letting go of something heavy neither of us had words for. The director asked if I'd visit him. "For closure," she said. "For the ending." I told her I didn't believe in closure, only distance. But a month later, I was sitting in a prison waiting room, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. When they brought him in, I barely recognized him. His hair was white. His shoulders slumped. His hands trembled slightly as he sat down. He smiled, that same gentle, practiced smile from all my childhood birthdays. "I hear people like your film," he said. "It's not your story," I told him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The glass between us gleamed under the fluorescent light, and I realized that he had been reduced to exactly what he'd always been, a man who needed control, sitting in a room where he had none. I stood up to leave. He said my name, not Evie, not sweetheart, just Evelyn. And for the first time, it didn't hurt to hear it. When My Father's Silence premiered at the Kansas Film Festival, I almost didn't go. But I did. Not for him, for me. When the credits rolled, people stood and clapped. Some cried. I didn't. I just breathed. After the screening, a journalist asked me what I hoped people would take away from my story. I told her that love and horror can live in the same house, and that surviving someone doesn't mean forgiving them. She didn't know what to say to that. Most people don't. That night, I walked out of the theater and looked up at the sky. The stars above Hallow Creek looked exactly the same as they did when I was 10. Quiet, unblinking, endless. And for the first time in my life, they didn't feel like witnesses. They just felt like light.